Wendy Williams has barely stepped out of her guardianship, and she's already ignited a storm, claiming Tupac Shakur is still alive, that his death was staged, and that a woman named Ollie Carter is his daughter. At the same time, Dwayne Keefe D. Davis, the only person ever charged in connection with Shakur's killing, is heading toward a trial set for August 10th, 2026, with the possibility that Sean Diddy Combs could be called to testify. That's where things stand.
So Wendy Williams is finally out of that guardianship, and the first thing she does is announce that Shakur is still alive, that he passed away, and that a woman named Ollie Carter is his real daughter. At the exact same time, the only man ever charged in connection with the case involving Shakur, Dwayne Keefe D. Davis, is about to stand trial on August 10, 2026, with Sean Diddy Combs potentially called as a witness for the defense. That is where we are right now. One track says Shakur is a corpse in a cremation urn. The other track says he is breathing somewhere, hiding in plain sight. And neither track can prove the other wrong. The trial cannot happen if Shakur is alive. Wendy cannot be silenced if he is no longer present. So what do we do with that? We watch the countdown. August 10th is coming, and nothing about this story gets cleaner as it gets closer.
Two completely incompatible narratives running side by side. One says Shakur died in 1996 and was cremated. The other insists he survived and disappeared. Neither can fully disprove the other, but only one is recognized in court. Legally, Shakur is dead, and the entire case rests on that assumption. Keefe D's arrest in September 20.
Let us back up and look at the hard part first. Keefe D was arrested in September 2023. First arrest in Shakur's case after 27 years of nothing. Prosecutors say he was the on-ground commander, the guy who ordered the drive-by. He has pleaded not guilty. His trial is now locked in for August 10th. And just a few months ago, a judge denied his motion to suppress evidence from a nighttime raid on his home. That means his own memoir, his electronics, everything they grabbed stays in. But here is where it starts to bend. Keefe D has been telling police since 2008 and 2009 that Diddy offered a $1 million bounty to take out Shakur and Suge Knight. He has repeated it in interviews, in his book, on camera. Diddy has denied it every single time. Now Keefe D's defense team says they want to call Diddy as a witness. Think about that. The man serving 50 months at FCI Fort Dix for 2 offenses could end up on a witness stand, under oath, talking about an alleged crime that Wendy Williams says never even happened. That is not a legal strategy. That is a hall of mirrors. Now bring Wendy back in because she is the engine here, and she just got rebooted. She exited guardianship in early 2026. No more legal checks. No one filtering what she says. And within weeks, she was already back on her old pattern, only louder. She says she saw Shakur in Las Vegas after he was no longer alive. She says he faked the whole thing. And she has alluded to Ollie Carter as his real daughter, a claim Ollie herself has been pushing for a while. Stop there. Wendy does not have to prove any of this. Shakur is legally deceased. His body was cremated. There is no grave to exhume. The Shakur family has not publicly refuted her, but they have not confirmed anything either, so she can just keep talking. She can name more names. She can claim more sightings. And the Keefe D trial cannot touch her. A courtroom cannot subpoena a deceased person to prove he is alive. A jury cannot rule on a fabricated claim because the case assumes the claim was genuine. Wendy Williams has become structurally immune to fact-checking, and she is just getting warmed up.
2023 marked the first real movement in nearly 30 years. Prosecutors say he coordinated the shooting. He says he's not guilty. A judge has already ruled that key evidence, including his memoir and seized electronics, can be used against him on paper.
That by itself would already be bad. But then it gets worse. Because even if you ignore Wendy completely, the justice system already showed us it cannot be trusted to get these cases right. You remember the Diddy trial. July 2025. The jury convicted him of 2 counts of transportation for commercial purposes, but they acquitted him on the big ones, human trafficking and racketeering. And that same trial played the CNN surveillance video. You know the one. Diddy kicking Cassie Ventura, dragging her by her hair in a hotel elevator. The video is undeniable. He apologized for it after it came out, and still, the jury came back with that split verdict. So what happened? One juror, a woman, said she did not even consider the domestic violence because it was not charged. Then a male juror gave an explanation that still makes your stomach turn. He said, quote, "You cannot clap with one hand." meaning Cassie bore some responsibility because she kept going back. That is not a legal finding. That is victim blaming dressed up as wisdom. Let that sit for a second. Video evidence of a man beating his partner, a public apology, and at least one juror basically said she was partly to blame. That is the system that will sit in judgment of Keefe D. That is the system that will decide whether Diddy's name comes out of that courtroom stained or clean. And we already know it produces outcomes that feel wrong. So when Keefe D's trial starts in August, do not expect clarity. Expect confusion. Expect a jury that might look at the same evidence and see two different things, because that is exactly what happened before.
That
He's
sounds
saying
like
that,
progress.
you know, Diddy, he put a hit out on you and Tupac, and that's the reason why
years,
Tupac got
Keefe
Vegas.
claimed
So,
Diddy offered a
yeah,
$1
man,
million
how you feel about
bounty
that?
to kill Shakur and Suge Knight. He said it to police in interviews and in his book. Diddy has denied it every time. Now, Keefe D's own defense team wants to call Diddy as a witness. That's not just a
Now look at what is already leaking out around the edges. Keefe D's own defense lawyers are not arguing that he is innocent in the normal way. They are arguing that he lied. They say his confessions were entertainment, showmanship, a way to sell books and get attention. They compared public fascination with Shakur's passing to the JFK assassination, saying someone would absolutely fake being at the center for money and fame. That is their defense. The prosecution's main witness is a man whose own team says he fabricated everything. So if Keefe D is convicted, does that mean Diddy paid for a criminal act? Or does it mean a jury believed a liar? If he is acquitted, does that mean Diddy is innocent? Or does it mean the defense successfully argued that their own client cannot be trusted? Either outcome feels broken, and here is where the room gets even darker. The Shakur family has been mostly quiet. Sakiwa, Shakur's sister, called the arrest a pivotal moment and said she would reserve judgment until all the facts are complete. That is careful. That is patient. But patience is not silence, and the family has not publicly denied Wendy's claims either. Why not? If someone said your brother passed away and had a secret child, would you just let that sit there? Unless you are not sure. Unless you have questions of your own. Unless there is something you are not saying. That is the problem with a story like this. Silence does not prove anything, but it also does not comfort anyone.
Well, let me ask you, do you think this trial is going to be the end of the story?
A man currently serving time could be asked under oath about an alleged plot that another public figure insists never happened. Then there's Wendy Williams.
I have no idea.
Now unfiltered and fully back in the spotlight. She says she saw Shakur after his supposed death. She suggests the entire event was staged. She amplifies the claim that Ali Carter is his daughter.
Meanwhile, Ali Carter is out there. Wendy says Ali already believes Shakur is her father. Ali has been saying it for a while. No one has demanded DNA from Shakur's remains. No one has asked the Shakur family to submit a sample. No one has forced this into a courtroom where it could be tested. And maybe that is because no one actually wants an answer. An answer would close the loop. An answer would end the speculation. But speculation is fuel. Speculation keeps people watching. Speculation lets Wendy stay on camera and Keefe D stay in the headlines and Diddy stay relevant even from a prison cell. So no one pulls the trigger on the one test that could actually settle something. That brings us back to August 10th. The trial is coming. Wendy is still talking. Diddy might testify or he might not. His lawyers have already approached the Trump administration about a pardon. Trump said he would take a look. Imagine that. Diddy walks free on a pardon before he ever has to answer a single question about a $1 million bounty. The trial happens without him. Keefe D sits there alone. The jury hears the same confessions, the same defense that says he made it all up, the same video evidence from a different case that proved nothing clean. And at the end, they hand down a verdict that will not tell us whether Shakur is deceased or alive, whether Diddy paid for a homicide or not, whether Ali Carter is his daughter or a woman chasing a fantasy.
These 3 law firms on retainer.
She doesn't have to
I don't know how much money is coming in, but I know that a lot of money is going out every single month for Diddy.
So here is where we are. The trial assumes Shakur is no longer alive. Wendy says he is alive. Neither can prove the other wrong. The only way to close the loop would be for Shakur to appear in public, and no one expects that to happen. Not his family, not the prosecutors, not even Wendy, who seems perfectly happy to leave it as an open question she can feed forever. The trial will happen. Wendy will keep talking. Diddy might walk free on a pardon. And none of it will tell us whether Shakur is actually in the ground or somewhere else entirely. That is not a story with an ending. That is a story that has learned to live without one. And the only question left is what happens when the only witness in a serious crime case is a man whose own defense lawyers say he lied about everything for money and fame. That is where we go next. We spent the first half watching the trial and Wendy Williams collide. Now we have to talk about the people who got caught in the machinery long before any of this went public. Because while the world was focused on Keith D's arrest, another accuser named Ashley Parham was filing a civil suit with allegations that should have stopped everyone cold. She claims that after she told Diddy she believed he had something to do with Shakur's case, he showed up at a house where she was staying, held a blade to her face, and then assaulted her with a remote control. She says his chief of staff was present. She says 2 other men were told to join in. And when she reported it to 3 different law enforcement agencies, as far as she knows, none of them investigated. 3 agencies. Nothing. That is not a finding of innocence. That is a system deciding not to look.
No mechanism forcing her claims into a court.
They don't want.
The Shakur family hasn't confirmed or denied any of this. Their silence doesn't prove anything, but it leaves space for everything. Meanwhile, no one is pushing for DNA testing that could potentially confirm or shut down Carter's claim. That kind of clarity would end this.
Now here is where it gets murky. The Contra Costa Sheriff's Department later said they found Parham's claims unfounded. Diddy's lawyers point to that and say he was not even in Orinda, California on the day she says it happened. Fair enough. That is a defense. But Parham is not going away. She appeared in a Peacock documentary with her face hidden, speaking through tears, saying she has become incredibly reclusive and does not trust anyone. Her attorney went further, claiming the man she met at a bar was a scouter for Diddy, someone sent to find victims. There is no evidence of a scouter network, but the fact that an attorney is willing to say it on camera tells you how far outside normal legal argument this story has drifted. Whether you believe Parham or not, the pattern is ugly. A woman voices a suspicion about Shakur, and then she says she paid for it. This is not an isolated note. Look at what came out of the Diddy trial itself, beyond the verdict. Witness after witness described a wall of silence that protected him for years. A former personal assistant named George Kaplan testified that he heard Cassie scream, quote, "Isn't anybody seeing this?" during an incident on a private jet. He said no one else on the plane did anything. He looked away because he was 23 years old and wanted to keep his job. Another assistant, Capricorn Clark, testified that Diddy showed up at her home with a firearm and said they were going to take care of the musician Kid Cudi. Clark said she went along with it. She later refused to talk to arson investigators when Cudi's car was set on fire. Her reason? She felt like a protector of Puff. That is the psychological hold we are talking about. People saw things, heard things, even participated, and still would not break ranks.
And speculation right now is what's driving the entire machine, even outside of Wendy's claims. The system itself hasn't inspired much confidence in Diddy's 2020.
So when Keith D's defense team says their client lied for fame, they are tapping into a much larger question. How many people in Diddy's orbit have said one thing publicly and another thing privately? How many have told stories that changed depending on who was paying attention? Consider Clayton Howard, a male performer who participated in the so-called freak-offs. He gave a documentary interview where he said Diddy used to lace baby oil with a certain substance and saved his own fluid in a cup as a souvenir. That is an extraordinarily specific detail. It is also completely unverified outside his testimony. But Howard is not the only one with a strange story. Kirk Burroughs, the Bad Boy co-founder, claimed he saw Diddy slap his own mother after the City College disaster back in 1991. Janice Combs has never commented on that. Burroughs also said Diddy would take young male acquaintances shopping, something 50 Cent has repeated for years as proof of something darker. And 50 Cent. We have to spend real time here because his role is weirder than people admit. He has been calling Diddy out since 2006, not politely, not professionally. He made a diss track called The Bomb, where he flatly said Diddy knows who shot Biggie. He spent years on Instagram posting memes, calling Diddy names, warning people away from his parties. At the time, it looked like jealousy. 2 rap moguls fighting over beverage sales and who had the bigger summer party. But after the federal raids, after the video, after the conviction, a lot of people started asking whether 50 Cent was not a troll, but a canary. His Netflix documentary, Sean Combs' The Reckoning, is not subtle. It is 4 hours of accusers, former employees, and insiders laying out a pattern that stretches back decades. Diddy's lawyers called it a shameful hit piece from a man with a personal vendetta. That is true. He does have a vendetta. But does a vendetta make someone wrong, or does it just make them motivated?
25 trial. Jurors delivered a split verdict despite clear video evidence of violence against Cassie Ventura. Some jurors dismissed it because it wasn't formally charged. Others interpreted it in ways that raised serious concerns about bias. The outcome didn't feel like resolution. It felt like fragmentation. That matters because the same kind of jury decide Keith D's fate.
Here's the part that keeps me up. The same week the documentary dropped, Diddy was already in prison, and his lawyers were already talking to the Trump administration about a pardon. Trump said he would take a look. That is not a promise, but it is also not a denial. If that pardon comes through, Diddy walks. He does not have to testify in Keith D's trial. He does not have to sit for a deposition in any of the civil cases. He just leaves FCI Fort Dix. And what would that mean for everyone who spoke out? For Cassie, who settled and signed a non-disclosure agreement. For Ashley Parham, whose case police called unfounded. For all the people who stayed silent for years because they were afraid, and then finally spoke, only to watch the target get a political escape hatch? The pardon angle is not the only future shock waiting. Keith D's trial is set for August 10th, but legal experts have already said delays could push it into 2027. That is another year of Wendy Williams making claims, another year of the Shakur family not answering, another year of Ali Carter not demanding DNA, another year of 50 Cent posting and Diddy's lawyers denying, and the whole machinery of speculation grinding along without ever producing a single piece of new, verifiable, courtroom-ready evidence about Shakur's status. The trial might happen, Diddy might testify, or none of that might happen, and the story will just keep spinning in place. Now watch how all these separate threads start weaving back together. You have a trial built on a confessed liar. You have a civil accuser whose claims were deemed unfounded but who still appears in documentaries. You have former employees who saw violence and said nothing. You have a longtime rival who may have been right for the wrong reasons. You have a family that will not speak. You have a woman who says Shakur is alive and no way to prove her wrong. And you have a potential pardon that could erase whatever is left of Diddy's exposure before any of it matters. None of these tracks are moving toward the same destination. They are all moving in different directions, and the only thing they have in common is that none of them leads to a clean answer.
Here, this isn't a mystery waiting to be solved. It may be a story that survives precisely because it never is.
That is the real story here. Not whether Diddy did it, not whether Shakur is alive. But the fact that we are trapped in a system where none of those questions can be answered in a way that satisfies anyone. The criminal justice system gave us a split verdict that ignored video evidence. The civil system gave us settlements and non-disclosure agreements that bury what happened. The documentary system gives us carefully edited narratives from people with clear agendas. The gossip system gives us Wendy Williams, who has no obligation to be right, only to be loud. And the political system might give us a pardon that erases everything without resolving anything. Each system produces its own version of the truth, and none of those versions line up. So where does that leave someone who just wants to know what actually happened? Waiting for a trial that cannot settle the core question, listening to a woman who cannot be proven wrong, watching a family that will not speak, reading about a pardon that might never come. There is no moment in this story where someone stands up and says, "Here is the evidence, here is the truth, the case is closed." That moment does not exist. It may never exist, and the people who could create it have every incentive not to. The trial will happen or it will not. Wendy will talk or she will not. Diddy will walk free or he will not. But none of those outcomes will tell us whether Shakur is in a grave or somewhere else entirely. None of them will tell us whether Ali Carter is his daughter or a woman caught up in something she does not fully understand. None of them will tell us whether the last 30 years of theories were covering for a man who got away or a man who was never there to begin with. So I will ask you the same thing I keep asking myself. At what point does the lack of an answer become the answer? When does the silence from the family start sounding less like dignity and more like something else? When does a pardon stop looking like mercy and start looking like a confession that the system never wanted to look too hard? I do not know. But I know we are not done watching. Drop a comment with your take. Are we ever getting a real ending to this, or is the open loop the whole point? We will be right here when the next piece drops.